Hey everyone! This is my first podcast recording, so welcome to Milk Carton Crimes. I really wanted to start up this podcast dedicated to true crime, the paranormal, conspiracies, and all things unknown, so I'm really excited to finally start this project. Some of you may already know me. My name is Madison, and I run the West Coast True Crime and Paranormal Society on Facebook. It's a sweet little group where we openly discuss things similar to what you're going to be hearing here today. So let's dive in. Tonight, I want to talk to you about the disappearance of a little boy from Truro, Nova Scotia. His name is Dylan Ehler. For those of you who may not be from the Maritimes, Truro is a small town in Nova Scotia, and Nova Scotia is a province on the east coast of Canada. Dylan was 3 years old at the time of his disappearance. I've done a lot of research on this case, and I'm ready to dive in with you all here and explore a timeline of Dylan's disappearance, as well as a few theories to what may have occurred. Just a reminder, everyone is innocent until proven guilty, and my theories are just that, theories. Right now, nobody has been a person of interest in Dylan's case, nobody has been or is arrested or charged with anything related to the case, so please do not go on a witch hunt for anyone involved with Dylan. On May 6, 2020, Dylan's mom Ashley had dropped Dylan off at his grandmother Dorothy's home around 10 a.m. and went out for a break and to have coffee with a friend. Dylan's dad Jason was at his mother's house the morning Dylan went missing. Jason was trying to contact Dorothy around 10:30 to 11 a.m. to contact Dylan, and he didn't get any answer. Jason and his mom drove to Dorothy's after a little bit, and police were already there. Police broke the news to Dylan's dad that Dylan had disappeared. Dylan's mom Ashley found out around 3 p.m. about Dylan's disappearance because she didn't have a phone at the time, so no one was able to contact her. Police and multiple news outlets report that Dylan was playing in the yard, but according to Dylan's parents, Dorothy had told Jason and Ashley Dylan wasn't playing in the yard. She had Dylan in one hand and the puppy in the other, and the leash. She walked down the bottom of her stairs, she let go of Dylan's hand, walks ahead, and leashed her dog. Maybe 10 seconds later, he's gone. Jason then went on to say, "My son would have ran, so how did he not pass you?" referring to passing Dorothy. Dylan has brown hair, rosy cheeks, a green left eye, and a blue right eye. Dylan is 3 feet tall, weighing 32 pounds. He was last seen wearing a green jacket with badges on it, including an American flag patch. The jacket had a fur hood. He was also wearing camel pants and gray and orange boots. At the beginning of the investigation, it was reported that he was wearing blue boots, but that's just a mix-up that they had. He was in fact wearing gray and orange boots. Dylan was last seen roughly around 1:10 p.m. near Queen Street and Elizabeth Street in Truro. Dorothy called the police at 1:15 p.m. Queen Street is considered a busy street in Truro, but Elizabeth is not. Elizabeth is a dead-end street. And police were on scene roughly around 1:20 p.m. Police and volunteers canvassed the area and a brook nearby Dorothy's home to search for Dylan. An alert was made to the public at 4:32 p.m., a whole 3 hours and 17 minutes after Dylan was last seen. Although police have said their dogs had followed Dylan's scent to the brook, the parents have confirmed dogs did not pick up a scent, and even so, have even said that the dogs were sent out, didn't even come back muddy, and have doubts that the police even used the dogs that much. Also noted that the cadaver dogs didn't find anything. So let's talk about Dylan's boots. On the first evening of search and rescue, searching, they found one of Dylan's boots along the bank of Leopard Brook, which merges into Salmon River. That's according to the news report. Dylan's parents say one boot was underwater, caught in a shopping cart completely submerged, up the stream closer to Dorothy's house, and the second boot was near the end of Leopard Brook, near the mouth of Salmon River, also submerged underwater. The boots were found 6 to 7 hours after Dylan disappeared. There was also no footprints that were ever discovered to match Dylan's. According to Dylan's parents, the brook is about a 5 to 10 minute walk from Dorothy's. Dylan's parents have said that he wouldn't be able to swim. They believe he went into the brook because that's where they found his boots. They, the police, follow their evidence and that's what they believe happened. They don't suspect foul play. The boots were not in the bank. They were in the water. Last boot was in the mouth, not even in the brook, was in the entrance to the Salmon River. Water wasn't fast that day. The parents also mentioned that the brook had a lot of fallen trees and brush in it. Not likely for a body to really float down. There was no broken branches, and the boots didn't even really make it all the way through. A professional diver met up with Jason and bet his entire business that Dylan couldn't have possibly gone through that stream. Since the disappearance, RCMP believe no foul play is suspected. They firmly believe he fell into the brook. They believe it was an accident and he got away from his grandmother in a short period of time, went into the water, or accidentally fell in the brook. There was a few security cameras around the area, but nothing that captured Dylan on camera. Dylan's grandmother, Dorothy, did pass a polygraph test. However, parents have cut ties with Dorothy since Dylan went missing. Another interesting note is that there is a halfway house about 15 minutes away from Dorothy's. The police did go to the house and questioned everyone there, and everyone was accounted for. Currently, there is an $18,207 reward for the return of Dylan as of November 2nd, 2020. This amount may have increased, but I haven't seen anything about an increase in my research. If you have any information regarding Dylan and his whereabouts, please contact Truro Police at 902-895-5351. So let's get into the theories. Dylan's dad has said Dylan is 32 pounds. He should have sunk with his boots in the water. And this goes into something that I think too, like if a little boy is going to go and fall into the water or walk into the water willingly, he should still have his boots on him. He weighs enough to hold them down. The other thing is, it was May. It was early May. And if you live on the East Coast, you know that it's still cold. The snow might have been gone in Nova Scotia, but here in Newfoundland, there's still snow. And I don't see a kid willing to go into the water if it's going to be cold. Like, I don't see him wanting to go and actually play in the water. Mind you, this is a 3-year-old we're talking about. I have a son who's 4 years old and he has autism. And I've never had to steer him away from water in the cold months. Even Dylan being alone, I just don't see him going into that water. Like, I don't see that happening. Another thing I find interesting is that Dylan is noted to be a runner. Like, he will run, he thinks it's a game, as most toddlers do. So for the grandmother to be in front of Dylan, how did he not get past her to get to the road or cut a corner, or even if he thinks it's a game, you would hear him laugh. You would be hearing this, and he's in boots. You'd hear him run past you. You'd hear gravel or grass. Like, these kids aren't quiet. Like, little kids, they're not quiet. So if it was only 10 seconds, she should have been able to see him at least go around a corner. Like, at the very least. And if she were to walk to the end of her driveway, which I've seen the streets on Google Maps, all of them don't really have long driveways, but if she was just to run out there and just look down the street, you would be able to see Dylan in that short amount of time. But they're trying to say that by that short amount of time, he was in the water already, or at the water, because it was only 10 minutes difference from the police getting there, and it's like a 5 to 10 minute walk. And kids, they don't just run over to the water. Like, they take their time. They see a rock, they're gonna pick it up. He's probably not, darting off to this water that, from what's been reported, he's never been to before. So this kid does not instinctively know, I'm going to run to the water right now. It's a game. Nanny's going to catch me. He doesn't know that. He's 3 years old. So my first theory is that Dorothy is lying about how long it took her to tie her dog on the leash. Or she wasn't really focused on Dylan to begin with. I firmly believe this based on a little 3-year-old cannot run off that far on a dead-end street in the matter of a moment. If Dylan were to run out towards the road, she would have noticed right away after peering out from her driveway. So it's 2020, it's easy to be caught up on your phone or just not paying attention, he's 3 years old, like, I don't know. It's crazy to me to think that he just ran off and she didn't notice and it was only 10 seconds. Like, I understand puppies can be really jumpy, like it might have took her a little longer than she wants to admit to, but at the same time, that is really crucial to the case. And, like, I don't want to call her a liar, but just, with how it is with kids, like, that's not possible. I'd understand if this was like a really busy place, like, oh, she lost him at a park or a mall, but this is like just a dead end road, guys. Like, this isn't, there's not many places to go. So, my second theory is only a little theory. Um, Based on the domestic violence report that happened 4 days prior to Dylan disappearing, his parents had a bit of an altercation. I Google mapped the mother's residence that was reported on the police report that was in this newspaper article. Um, so I decided to, that address or that street, I didn't have the exact address, but the street where Dylan lives to the grandmother's house is a 5-minute drive. um, Kids, when their moms drop them off, they remember how they got in there. So it could have been possible that Dylan ran from his nan and, he ran in the direction that he would have got there, as in to go home. So that's possible, and that would explain how he ended up near the water because he would have run up Elizabeth Street, and got onto Queens, and you have to pass the train tracks and the water to get to where, like to get to the right area to get to where he lives. So it could really be possible that he did run up there just from recognition. I mean, he wasn't dropped off too long. He was probably just trying to run to mom. I don't think he had that um cognitive recognition of like, oh, this is the way home. I just think this is like, oh, this is the way mommy went. I know my son does that. Like, if I'm outdoors, he'll follow me like a baby duck. Like, my son will follow me everywhere. But again, my son has autism, and that could just be a thing. But typically, kids are going to go that direction. Another theory is that someone abducted Dylan, and in a wrestling match to get him into the vehicle, one of Dylan's boots flung off. And as a mother of a toddler that's Dylan's age, I know kids will just deadweight if you try to pick them up without them wanting to. My son's boots have flung off multiple times before, so I think in a hurry, once Dylan was in the vehicle, they tossed the boots over the bridge, and that's why they couldn't pick up Dylan's scent, because Dylan was never in the water or anywhere near it. And that would explain why there was no footprints, but the boots were in the water. They could have just been disposed of because they were quickly just trying to, like, get him in the car, get him quiet, just go. I know that's horrible to think of, but it is a possibility. There is a bridge that's over the water, before you go on that street. Like, before you cross the railroad track, there is a bridge to get over there, so it is a possibility that it was just, like, thrown into the water. So this next theory is a little bit more grim, but it is a theory that has been heard of before. Dylan did go in the water, but by the time the grandparents had actually found Dylan, he had drowned. So to cover up him passing and being responsible, they moved his body elsewhere and washed the clothes. It is reported that Dorothy had washed Dylan's clothes and Ashley had to bring Dylan's blanket to use for his scent. So there is a possibility while Dorothy was, quote unquote, out looking for Dylan, the step-grandfather had relocated him. This theory is flawed, however, because police did search for Dylan in the home multiple times, and had he been deceased around the area, the cadaver dogs would have picked up his scent, but it's flawed, but again, it's just a possibility. The last theory is that Dylan did go in the water, and he's somewhere in the salmon lake. And it's a possibility, but I don't really want to believe that's what's happened. Without conducting any readings, I firmly believe that Dylan is alive and well. And Churro, from what I know, is a connecting point for the VIA rail. And there's a possibility that he went on the train with someone as in any possible location in Canada. I firmly don't believe that Dylan's parents had anything to do with Dylan being missing. Both their alibis check out, and I genuinely feel that they're fighting tooth and nail to get Dylan home. Every Sunday, they conduct a search from the times, I believe, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. in hopes of finding anything pertaining to Dylan's disappearance. At this point, they have said they are no longer looking for a body, but clothes or bones. If you have any information about Dylan, please call the Churro Police at 902-895-5351. It doesn't matter if you see a little boy who looks like him, contact someone. Anyone. If he is abducted, he could possibly be in Newfoundland. Churro is only 3 hours from North Sydney, guys. It's not impossible that he might be in Newfoundland. I believe that there's a possibility someone abducted him and is raising him as their own. It's rare, but again, it's not unheard of for people who are infertile and just not mentally there to steal a child and raise them. You know, someone could say it's their foster child. Someone could be saying they just, they adopted him and they finished the paperwork. There's any possibility out there. And there's been multiple cases of people doing that, taking children from hospitals, taking children from playgrounds. He could have just been on the wrong street at the wrong time, and a sick person might have had their perfect opportunity to get a little boy. And honestly, out of all the possibilities, like, that's what I'm hoping for, because at least at the possibility at the end of the day, Dylan has a chance to come home. And whether or not Dylan comes home alive or passed, his family deserves to have that closure and, something of their little boy. Like, I can't imagine if I lost my son. And I think that's what really drawed me to this case, is that it's not far from Newfoundland, for one. And two, Dylan reminds me so much of my own son. I try not to take too much of my own emotions and put them into this, but I really hope that they find Dylan. And I hope that, if the family is listening to this podcast or they're shown this podcast, hope you understand. I mean, no disrespect to you guys. I'm just trying to get the word out there. And everyone else, I really hope that this was more informational. I'll attach pictures if I can. If not, it will be on the Facebook page. And there's also a Facebook page to help search for Dylan. So if you're in the Nova Scotia area, you could look up searching for Dylan Ehler. I'm sure it's something like that. If you search up Dylan Ehler missing on Facebook, you're bound